In the second season of Douluo Continent, Peerless Tang Sect, Huo Yuhao's infiltration into Heaven Dou City marks one of the most suffocating and tragic moments of the entire storyline. What begins as a desperate mission to uncover Tang Ya's whereabouts quickly turns into a carefully laid trap, one designed not just to defeat him, but to break him completely. Standing at the center of this trap is Dragon Emperor Douluo Long Xiaoyao, a figure whose power, calculation, and cruelty elevate the encounter into a true death game. From the moment Huo Yuhao is intercepted, he understands the terrifying reality of the situation. Long Xiaoyao is not an opponent he can challenge head-on. The difference in cultivation is so vast that even resistance feels meaningless. Yet Huo Yuhao still chooses to attack. This is not recklessness nor blind courage, but a calculated gamble born from desperation. He knows that with his own strength alone, escape is impossible. What he is betting on is not himself, but the trump card hidden deep within his body, the Beast God Di Tian. The Black Dragon's reverse scale is the bridge between Huo Yuhao and Di Tian, a terrifying existence capable of turning even peak Douluo-level figures pale with fear. Huo Yuhao has already proven its effectiveness before, most notably when Di Tian's presence humiliated death god Douluo Shishui. That memory lingers in the minds of all the top-tier powerhouses, and Long Xiaoyao is no exception. Unlike Ye Shishui, Long Xiaoyao does not underestimate his prey. He arrives prepared. Before Huo Yuhao can even attempt to summon Di Tian, Long Xiaoyao decisively seals the Black Dragon's reverse scale. With a single move, he cuts off the connection between Huo Yuhao and the Beast God, severing the only lifeline that could have turned the tide. In that instant, Huo Yuhao's last external trump card is rendered useless. The realization is crushing. For the first time since entering Heaven Dou City, true despair settles into his heart. Yet even then, hope still exists, at least in the eyes of the audience. Because Huo Yuhao is not alone. Tang Wutong is there, and Tang Wutong carries within her an even greater trump card than Di Tian, her father, the God King Tang San. This is where the situation becomes both cruel and deeply misunderstood. Long Xiaoyao can block Di Tian, but he cannot block Tang San. The difference between a beast god and a god king is immeasurable. If Tang San were to descend, no force on the Douluo Continent could stop him. Even Long Xiaoyao would be nothing more than dust before true divine authority. On the surface, it seems obvious that Tang Wutong should be able to save Huo Yuhao. So why doesn't she? The answer lies not in indifference nor hesitation, but in absolute helplessness. According to the official preview and subsequent development, Tang Wutong had already exhausted everything she had before the cruel death game even began. She fought. She resisted. She struggled with every ounce of strength available to her. She even invoked the Dragon God's descent, unleashing power that should have shaken heaven and earth, and yet it still wasn't enough. Long Xiaoyao stood unmoved, his grip unbroken, his control absolute. If Tang Wutong truly had the ability to call upon Tang San at will, she would never have allowed herself to be captured, her neck restrained in Long Xiaoyao's hand like a powerless hostage. The cruel truth is that Tang Wutong cannot summon Tang San. Gods do not intervene freely in the affairs of the Douluo Continent. This is one of the fundamental laws governing the balance between the divine realm and the mortal world. Tang San, despite being a god king, is bound by these rules. His protection over Tang Wutong exists, but it is not an active, controllable power. It is passive, a final safeguard, not a weapon to be wielded at will. Tang San left behind a trace of his divine power within Tang Wutong, but this power only activates under very specific conditions. It responds to threats directly aimed at Tang Wutong herself. Mental invasions, attempts at possession, or actions intended to kill her outright. When such a threat occurs, Tang San's divine power erupts automatically, annihilating the attacker without mercy, even if that attacker is a limit Douluo. But Long Xiaoyao is far too cunning to cross that line. From the very beginning, his target was never Tang Wutong's life. He had no intention of killing her. To him, she was a tool, a hostage, a lever to pry open Huo Yuhao's will. As long as Tang Wutong remained alive and technically unharmed, Tang San's divine power would remain dormant. The rules of the world itself shielded Long Xiaoyao from divine retribution. Even more tragically, Tang San himself would only become aware of the situation the moment his divine power was triggered. Without that trigger, he would not descend, no matter how desperate the situation appeared from a mortal perspective. Huo Yuhao's suffering, no matter how severe, did not meet the conditions required to summon a god. And so the death game begins. Long Xiaoyao forces Huo Yuhao into an impossible choice: submit or watch Tang Wutong suffer. Unable to fight back, unable to escape, and unable to rely on any external power, Huo Yuhao turns his blade inward. Each stab is not just an act of physical self-harm, but a testament to his resolve, his love, and his utter desperation. 9 times, 18 times. Each wound carves deeper than flesh, cutting into the hearts of everyone watching. Tang Wutong's reaction makes the truth unmistakably clear. She screams, she begs, she breaks down, crying out for him to stop. In her agony, she even wishes that he would stab her instead, just to spare him some of the pain. These are not the actions of someone who is unwilling to help. They are the actions of someone who cannot. If Tang Wutong truly had a way to summon Tang San in that moment, she would have done so without hesitation. The fact that she doesn't is proof enough of her helplessness. Her trump card exists, but it is sealed by the laws of the world, inaccessible no matter how dire the situation becomes. As for Long Xiaoyao, his cruelty is not without purpose. He never intended to kill Huo Yuhao. Death would have been too easy. What he wanted was to shatter him, to drive him to the brink, and then force him to consume the dragon pill. The dragon pill is unimaginably powerful, but also incredibly dangerous. Only when Huo Yuhao is at his weakest, both physically and spiritually, can its power be fully absorbed without rejection. Every stab, every moment of suffering is part of this cold, calculated plan. This is what makes the entire scene so haunting. It is not a simple battle of strength, but a collision between rules, emotions, and manipulation. Long Xiaoyao wins not because he is the strongest being present, but because he understands the limitations of gods, the boundaries of power, and the fragility of the human heart. Tang Wutong does not fail Huo Yuhao, the world fails them both. In the end, this moment stands as one of the most painful and unforgettable sequences in Peerless Tang Sect. It strips away the illusion that divine bloodlines and hidden trump cards can solve everything. Sometimes even love backed by a god king is not enough to overturn the cruel logic of fate. Huo Yuhao's self-harm is not born of weakness, but of unwavering resolve, and Tang Wutong's tears are not a sign of inaction, but of powerlessness. This is the true tragedy of the scene, and the reason it lingers long after the episode ends. And so this cruel death game comes to an end, leaving behind far more than blood and wounds. It exposes the harsh truth of the Douluo Continent. That strength is not always enough, that even divine bloodlines are bound by unbreakable rules, and that love can exist alongside absolute helplessness. Huo Yuhao's self-inflicted wounds were never a lack of courage nor blind sacrifice, but the only path left to protect the one person he could not afford to lose. Tang Wutong's screams were not hesitation, but the pain of knowing that even a god king's protection has limits. Long Xiaoyao did not win through overwhelming power alone, but through his understanding of those limits, using the laws of the world itself as his greatest weapon. And in that moment, no miracle descended, no god intervened, only resolve, suffering, and an unshakable will to endure. This is what makes Peerless Tang Sect so compelling. Not just battles of cultivation, but battles of choice, restraint, and consequence. If you have your own thoughts on this tragic moment, feel free to share them below. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again in the next story.